You want to go
Ready?
in? Yeah.
Are you going to share your video?
It's not detecting my camera.
All right, so everyone should have a copy of the agenda, specifically the agenda for this kickoff. Does everyone have one? Yeah. So the purpose of this is just try to get through these first 4 agenda items. So the first item on here is to determine and then formalize the working committee. So Matt's going to go over what his expectations were as far as this goes.
Yeah, moving forward, there's going to be a lot of meetings involved and required. So there's going to really require folks who can participate and are available to being part of the working meetings, especially once we get the architects involved. There's going to be a lot of questions answering, programming, design items to go through with them. And so my first question with Carrie was, I didn't know if you guys, there was a committee that was already established for the town hall. And apparently there's not a formal one because you guys have done multiple committees in the past, which those are the past reports that I have also have read. But it was understood that possibly there might be a couple of SB members who may want to participate on as a working committee. And then, you know, that committee would report back to the full board as often as you need for updates. Now, one of the things that for some of the new members, what I use is I use a web-based project management and scheduling software. It's called smartsheet.com. And what I do is I give you access to that portal, and then you'll see all the activities that the project requires, if we're making headway or not. But then also any documents that are being released, it goes into there, and then you get an instant notification that there's been some new documents updated. So I would like to know if we could, one of the first agenda items is to figure out who would be part of that.
So we've got some bad feedback through the mics, really choppy. So we all pick up in the room on one mic. Like I'm muted, Carrie's muted, Matt's unmuted. I can pick up everything we're saying from Matt's audio, but it's gotten really scratchy in the last minute.
You want me to mute?
Yeah, why doesn't Matt mute, Carrie stay mute, and then I will unmute. And then we'll just try to use mine as a one mic and see how that works. So I'm gonna unmute now. Okay. So does that sound a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear you. You can hear me too, pretty good.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So go ahead.
Better for you, Jeff. Did you guys hear the feedback as well?
I can hear it.
Or
Yeah, I feel like the feedback got worse with the tape.
What's wrong with this thing?
All right, how's that?
That sounds good.
That sounds better.
Yeah, it's way better.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right, so that's just, and this one's the one recording the meeting, so that's probably good. All right, so we'll let Matt continue.
Will we start over?
I heard a smart sheet. I heard you talk about smart sheet.
Just at the smart sheet part.
Okay. So what I use a project management online system that's called smartsheet.com. What it allows you guys to do is have an up-to-date where we are with schedule, tasks, any documents that are been developed, and all the SB members would have instant access as soon as new documents have been uploaded. So it's a good way to really keep all the information in one place. And I just want to make sure just to clarify that this is a very confidential environment and portal. So when you see results, let's say from RFPs from architects and stuff, please don't send links to other people outside of who's been specifically invited.
To the smart sheet.
To the smart sheet.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And honestly, as we get, both in the beginning and as this progresses, you're expecting almost weekly meetings, or at least every other week?
Well, in the beginning, as when the RFP goes out, I usually give them about 3 weeks to respond to it. So there's not a lot to do during the 3 weeks. And then what I'll do then is put once we receive all the proposals, I'll put a analysis sheet together, regroup with the committee team, the working team, and just basically say, these are the results, and you guys choose who you want to work with from that point forward.
And this would be the RFP for the space needs analysis? What
And
RFP
also
are
design too.
all of the
Yeah,
RFPs?
to get it to the schematic level, so we get to the budget and the voting, the ballot initiative.
I know there's other things we have to decide first, but I'm just
Yes.
providing record.
So the first thing on agenda is the members of the working committee.
Because Matt's question to me was, I couldn't answer, was it the select board and Anna and myself, obviously, or we don't really want to have to warn every single meeting and then be forced to invite the public with some of those really sensitive conversations. So is there going to be a working group that reports back to the select board, or is the select board prepared to meet on top of your regular work and meeting schedule another 2 times a month at least, if not more, while we get this part done? And I couldn't answer that.
Well, there's 2 thoughts. We, like we're doing now, twice a month, and have staff be the fill-in, or we can do 2 members of the select board, and I think the staff has to be extremely well represented, especially through the space needs analysis, working with the consultants. But, I mean, I'm always willing to volunteer for extra work, kind of a glutton for punishment type thing. But I think what 2 of the newest members who haven't experienced what we've gone through in the past 2 years might have a fresher look. So I'm really open. Any ideas, volunteers?
I'll volunteer as long as it's Friday. What's a drinking night?
That's a working night.
No.
Yeah.
How's your schedule during the daytime?
Monday through Thursday is pretty open.
Yeah, okay, good. Because in all fairness to the design firms, I want to make sure that, it keeps costs down if we can meet during the working hours, like 9 to 5. That way it's fair to them too. Yeah, okay.
And we could have one other member who can make it. It just needs to be consistent, because I think it end up redoing work and doubling back too often if someone can only make, say, half of the meetings. That's all. And then we would.
Yeah, smaller groups easier to get everyone's scheduled together, although it's just like herding chickens.
We would have to report to the select board just like you were before, at least once a month anyway.
Yes.
That would be a minimum. Does anyone else want on?
I'm just nervous to commit right now because my job is so up in the air and my schedule is no longer in my control. So I'm not sure. In another month or 2, I'd have it better. I'll feel a little more settled.
I couldn't commit at this time. Since I'm still on the planning commission at this point.
Right.
Yeah, so I probably can't add another meeting. But if there's ever a time where maybe backup coverage is needed, I might be able to do a couple meetings here and there.
Okay.
If that's something that's on the table.
Sure.
Yeah. Jonathan. I know Stanley would want to do it. Everything.
We can ask him.
Yeah. So why don't we do that? And if Stan won't do it, I will. I'm just always hesitant to take on daytime work because every moment I'm out of my office costs me money out of my pocket. But have somebody there to answer the phone. But if Stan can't do it, I won't do it.
I don't think it can work right now for him because it's COVID.
Well, nobody's right. They're not having.
No.
All right. So the working committee right now is Jonathan, myself, Anna, Matt, possibly Stan.
Okay. The next item then was to discuss kind of previewing back history on the report that I prepared back in October. And not to get into the weeds of it, I'm just going to do a quick summary. If you read that report, it really was on page 4 of my report, 421, and it's the landscape spreadsheet. And outstanding decisions I think that need to be made is, is it the option 1, option 3A, 3B, or 3C? And option 1 was the option of staying where you are, modifying the existing building. Scott Partners in the past had done a schematic design of adding the elevator core, adding an additional bathroom in the front, and then utilizing the basement construction. And then with all of the options, I did a quick pros and cons scenario on that. And the concern about option 1 was that there's a big limitation on storage of vital records that you have to maintain in a fireproof, environmentally sound facility for 7 years, Anna?
Forever.
Oh, forever?
Records?
Land
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
records.
forever.
Okay,
I mean, we've been going back since 1897.
yeah, that's forever.
Yeah, we can't move any out. That's why
Yeah.
it's very limited.
And the 3 primary issues that I had made a note is that on option 1, as I said, it's maybe about an 8 to 10 year limitation to staying where you are currently. And this will be additional costs incurred, but the biggest issues are you've got limited parking, your septic system's already maxed out. There's nothing more you can do to facilitate an expansion to that. And then you obviously have an aging building. And, yes, I put a cost estimate together, but to be honest with you, as an estimator, when it comes to renovating an old building, I'm not sure if you can carry enough contingency because you don't know what you're going to run into on those unforeseen things. But that option came out to about $1.6 million of cost. That was being pursued.
We'll call it like 2 million by the time you add a contingency.
Yes.
For 10 years.
And
You're looking at probably 3.5 to 4.
well, I think 10, I would say more like 8 or less, because what happens is it's a staffing. I mean, as the community grows, look at your staffing plan, who you want to add.
I meant like 3.5 to 4 million would be what.
Yes, that's the other option 3, option 3A, 3B, and 3C.
You double the investment, but the longevity is.
The useful life is 5 times
Yeah.
as long or more, 5 to 7 times.
I figure, yeah, I say about 50 to 70 years, but then not only that, you can get a facility that's a lot more energy efficient. It's going to be laid out the way exactly it needs to be with expansion and growth and staffing in mind. And so you don't get pigeonholed, in the future. And that option 3A was based on a 10,000 square foot option. That was just like a single floor slab on grade, 10,000 square feet. Option 3B was build the same 10,000, but then have a full basement. Then that records could be stored there. You can have records also on the main floor. And then option 3C was going with a 13,000 square foot slab on grade type of building.
So 3B and C were allowing growth, more growth, room for growth.
Yeah, 10
Not necessary.
is tight, I think, even. That's why I did the 13,000 square foot option. That actually gives you more planning for growth in the future. But 20,000 square foot is pennies on the dollar to get additional 10,000 square foot because you're already building the basement. You add 5 more feet of vertical foundation wall to it. I figured a walkout basement for second means of egress. You'd have a small elevator, 1 person, or like a Lula type system that can take care of the ADA. And then you can have bathrooms down there, and then you can also have long-term storage files down there. That'll be in a concrete bunker. Harper.
The water would be, we could design it out to make sure that it would never flood.
So,
Hi, this is Erin. Can you hear me?
yes,
Great. So for options 3A through, or just option 3, all options, did you write that dependent on that specific site, or since folks are hoping that we consider staying in the Bay, if we found a location in the Bay, could we take some of this information and transfer it to a property that's in the Bay?
absolutely. It was really based on any piece of property. And so I budgeted, that's why it was a slab on grade with the basement, so that could be situated anywhere. Obviously, the sooner you know the location, the more the design could fit for that specific location.
So if I could, by a show of hands, nothing binding, I'd like to know roughly, just for our own knowledge, where everybody stands on 1 or 3. Is there anybody here that wants to invest a significant amount of time and energy into developing plans to rehab this building? Or should we immediately look elsewhere?
Well, I have questions. I mean, I think with our current town hall, if there was a way to make it bigger and the vault space bigger, I mean, I think a lot of people in town are seeing what the city did with City Hall and how they used the same space and rehabbed it. And now it's a beautiful historic building. And I definitely have concerns if we just ditch our current building, what's going to happen to it down the road? Who's going to take on a building with all these problems that we decided we couldn't upgrade affordably? And then we're going to be stuck with a historic landmark degrading, you know, right at the Bay.
Can I answer that? You know, part of what I do in my life, in my business, is I advise real estate developers and contractors, and mostly those who spec out and do new construction. One of the things that's an option is that if this building is vacated, you know, you guys could either, the Tom can consider either a development type of partnership with a private developer, or convert this into some sort of housing type project. But, you know, let this turn out to be a tax base, so that's additional income back to the city, you know, as a private development. You know, don't let it be a, you know, a cash hole, you know, for a graveyard, but turn this into where a private developer would be willing to take it and turn it into an investment.
So buying that, a major renovation with something in the National Historical Registry, does that make it harder to convert it from current use to housing?
No, actually, there's benefits to it, because for a private developer, he gets the 33% tax write-off for National Historic renovation. So there's a huge incentive for them.
And I was approached in the last 6 months by someone who's been doing that in buildings in the city and asking if we were interested in doing it here, including this building. So he mentioned those credits that Matt was talking about and being willing to work with the Historic Registry. We didn't get any more details in.
Yeah, you go through the NHP, the National Historical Preservation, whatever it is.
I think it's trust.
But you know, there's value to this building. I look at it, you know, as a developer eyes, there's value to this building, especially with the location that you have towards the lake. There's, I would say there would be some interest in the private sector.
Mm.
Convert this building so it's paying taxes.
If we're not in it. Did you have another question, Jessica?
No, that was good. I mean, it's good to hear your experience and that there's potential for that to happen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in, Brendan, when you were asking for a show of hands, that's not, I mean, we're not taking a motion and making a vote on which direction we're going. This is just.
No, I'm just curious.
No, you can't do that in executive session anyway, so we're definitely not doing that.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to clarify what we were doing.
Me too.
I can't call for motions anyway.
No.
So are we all leaning pretty heavily towards 3 with what Matt has to say in mind for the future of this building?
I think the other, I was with Jessica too around the concern around what would happen to the building that we currently have, and certainly being sensitive to the residents saying that they wanted it in the bay. To me, I'm concerned to stay in the current location, the septic system. There's only so much you can do in that situation, and maybe there's something that could be done to expand capacity, but I know that can get pretty expensive pretty quickly, and it also involves, additional maintenance costs potentially, and also would further limit us in that site. And also, what I liked about, just as an example, with the Pizzagalli schematic with potential, changes, is that there's space for community space as well. So if folks wanted to have community meetings and rent, not rent, but like save space there. If we did our own building elsewhere, new construction, we could build in that space. I think that in the renovation of the town hall, it might make it harder to create that kind of space for community engagement outside of just our regular meetings that we have. So I think, new construction, I think I would be leaning in that direction, but I've, not making any decisions on where I stand at this point.
Check the phone situation. Jonathan, do you want to look into the little camera and tell the world how you feel?
Good one. So option 2 through 3A through 3C. Now, does that have money in there for like mound system, or was that all planned on being municipal?
Option, well, 2 already has a system already in place. They're tied in. Right. That's a Piscataway Properties. Options 3 would tie into the system, and it would actually go either. I priced it the most extreme direction, which was going towards Field.
Mm-hmm.
But I did find later on that there is a possibility to go straight across the street. Do that way, because I'm trying to avoid, trying to do as gravity as much as possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We heard going to Maple Fields was the most direct. Yeah. And so we discounted option 2 because retrofitting that building was going to cost too much. I think that's why we were talking about 1 and 3.
Well, I think we've got Aaron alluded to it. 1,500 to 400 isn't exactly a wishy-washy, this is how we might feel. That was pretty emphatic from the voters who want our town hall in the Bay Area. I don't think that I could ever support any project outside of the Bay Area after that. So we're going to have to figure on private drilled wells and septic systems. Now that's how I feel about it. If somebody else wanted to say, we should explore other areas of the town, I'm not trying to silence anybody. But 1,500 to 400.
I mean, Brendan, I would also say that I think our voters or the residents would say, if we did our due diligence and tried to stay in the Bay, but then found that adding the well, adding a mound system, and also new construction and buying land if it wasn't donated, if that makes it more expensive, then I think they would say, I don't know what they would say, but I think that we would have to ask them again, is it worth the cost to stay in the Bay, or should we do something that's a little bit, more cost effective somewhere else in the town?
My direct response to Aaron's point, which was a good point, is we're going to be behind the 8 ball trying to convince the public to leave this building. When we do, if the first option we give them doesn't match the article that they gave us an emphatic, you will stay in this area, I think we're going to be fighting with 2 hands behind our back. I think the first project we bring to them has to have a clear shot at passing, because we've got a really good group right now. But if 1 or 2 of us, gets off the board and we're going for a revision and we come back, and then all of a sudden it's 10 years from now and the vault's full and we have no plan. But, Matt, a mound system for something like this is what, like $50,000 or less?
65.
And then a well, I
That
mean,
was a
you
cost
drill
for
wells
the
for
garage.
20 grand.
That was the cost of the garage. 65,000.
And that's about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking probably 75 grand with a well drill. If you run force mains, they charge ridiculous amounts of foot. So when you're looking at the short-term hookup cost versus building a localized system, you're going to be within striking distance of one another. We've got a working committee. I guess it's their job to review and establish a schedule, but we have to choose whether or not our goal is to bring something to voters in November or March. And that's the last item on our agenda.
Well, and we're gonna spend less money if we decide, I guess you want us to move forward looking at all options, but if we could narrow it down to 1 or 3, that would help us save funds and time. At this point, I hear a little both.
Yeah, you're on I don't know, do you have a way to show my screen?
I,
You can make me as a presenter and then I
I
can
don't
show my screen.
maybe. Not really great at that. Share screen.
Yeah.
Oh, they made this.
Yeah, give it to Matt.
How do I do that?
If you go to participants, there might be a way to make him the presenter.
Yeah, use me as a presenter. That's what WebEx does.
Yep.
So how do I do that?
Bottom of the screen,
Yeah, hold on.
at the bottom of the screen, there should be participants, chat, share screen, record, reactions. And if you click
Yes.
on participants, and if you hover over Young, it should give you options. I can't see the options because I'm not the
Over
presenter.
to the
Over
right
on
hand
the
side.
right.
Oh, over here.
Just click on
Then
Young.
go to more. There you go. Make call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go team.
Go team.
Yeah, you'll get out of that. Or does it stay open?
Right, then
I don't know if I can. I'm gonna mute too. Hope that helps.
I don't know if you want to mute Carrie because
Yeah, no, Carrie, you stay on.
All right, fine.
And we'll all stay muted.
I don't know what is happening right now.
That's good control of it. That's good control of it.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah, let Matt do this.
Put my screen there.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, good. So what I did is I already developed the smart sheet schedule, and you can see the items here. We've got a couple of steps already to take care of. Today's the kickoff meeting, and then these are the milestones that I kind of look at what I would need the whole SB board to kind of participate in and have decisions made. And the thought was that by June 23rd, the big milestone is to have a selected design team. And by July 30th, end of the month, approve a schematic design and program. And then by a couple weeks after that, you're gonna approve the final design and the budget. That gives you enough time. I think you need, what, 45 days? This is driven by the November 3rd election. So this gives you all the information you need by that time, ahead of time. You have public forum, get the information out. And so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done very quickly. This is why it's so important. If we can leave here today to have what direction that the working group is gonna, the marching orders. My plan was to get the RP out by early next week. Because the RP is going to, clearly state what the program goals are. And if I have to, I'm starting back in back to base one, and we want the design team and the working committee to rethink of all the options again, we're gonna lose a lot of time going through that process. And the reason I say this is because you guys spent a lot of money already in the past. You know, you had studies done, you have my studies done. So I'm basically launching off all those steps that you've already invested money in. Let's take advantage of that. Let's not throw that out the window, because there's a lot of good information there, and that's how I base my information. And then from there, this is like the next step. Move the project forward.
How many options can we give to the working committee?
Well, here's the thing. It's going to be real expensive. You're going to have the design team work on 2 different options. Let's say it's like a 2 drastic ones, whether it's option 1 or option 3. You have option 3. Your information on option 1 is almost already done, because you've already received a report on what would be done, and I base my cost estimate on that. So to me, I feel confident that you can basically take that number. I would add more contingency to it. And you can take it to the ballot today if you wanted to. Option 3 is going to take a little bit more time, because then we got to look at, okay, where is it going to be situated? Look at all the, the programming. We know 80% of the programming requirements, for staffing. And then there needs to be more discussion about, where do you see staff 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, so on and so forth, just so that we don't miss out.
My thought is, look at a version of option 3, but also take our data from 2015 and freshen it up to today's numbers. And if there are any looming questions, answer them. Because
I'm sorry?
Brendan's hard to hear. It's a little choppy. I think
Oh.
he might just be far away from a mic.
can you hear me any better now?
I mean, it's about the same. I think Jessica's encountering the same problem. I've been seeing her shake her head too.
Gary, can you mute?
Oh, yes, I can.
Is this any better?
The echo's there, but I can hear you better.
Okay. So my thought is, yeah, we gotta turn that on. It can't be my mic.
I wonder, Brendan, is it going in through your headphones? Is there a microphone there? And then also in
No, this is turned off. I only have it for hearing. That way I can hear what you hear at the same time. It's confusing as all hell, but it helps me be able to hear you guys better.
Mm-hmm.
What if Brendan speaks up?
Can you hear me any better now?
That was a weird sound.
Maybe stand
Carries.
where you are, because you're the presenter.
I think it was
I'm muted.
the microphone and that little reverb. At least I could hear all the words.
This, how we have it set up now is better?
Right before, where Brendan was kind of reverberating, but at
Oh.
least I could hear him clearly.
Okay.
The problem is when my mic's on, it plays.
Yeah, and reverb tends to get like worse and worse over time, but maybe it'll. Maybe we just need to decide whether we're all in the room or we're all not in the room, so we don't have this again.
Okay.
So
Okay, can you hear me any better? Yeah, no, that's way worse. Yeah, Matt, you gotta mute. Okay, we're just gonna go with Carrie's. We're picking a place, and that's the one that's gonna tell us this place.
Okay, I might try to find headphones, so I might just, maybe it'll just be better for them hearing on my speakers, so.
Or do you want to sign off from your tablet? Because you can be seen through this one. Okay, like it doesn't matter. All right, let's just try this.
Brendan, can you refresh what you just said about the 2015 report?
Well, I'm thinking no matter what way we go,
Thank you.
we have to refresh the 2015 data to today. Cost, if the square footage has changed. I mean, the public is going to want to know the exact picture on why this building is not as good of a deal versus another.
And that's what is in some of these numbers. That's what Matt just said.
Right, but that's a lot of that data is from 2015.
No, Matt put, well, he took the,
Freshened it up
I
last
freshened it
month.
up from Scott Partners.
last year.
Yeah.
So it is like 6 months old right now. It's not 10 years old though. But, and it
That's what I'm
wouldn't,
saying, that's actually good to go. If you decide to stay, option one is what we're gonna go with, it's almost pretty much good to go now. There's the numbers, you can add maybe $200,000-$300,000 of contingency to it, but it's ready to go.
except for the brushing up of the space needs analysis, right? So, because we don't know what that is. We
And
don't
the
know what
pretty
that means.
pictures too, of maybe elevations and, you know, more schematic design drawings. What they did is very conceptual.
Well, and frankly, I don't know what the new normal is anymore, but we're gonna have to consider that as well. I mean, we've had to put plexiglass in places I'd never thought we'd use plexiglass, so. I mean, I don't know what the new standards are gonna look like.
Matt, I have a question for you
Could be more money.
that Aaron and Jonathan brought up the night that we selected you as an PM. What's your proposal for engaging the public through this process?
I put it in here, look at on the screen here. Up here. And I kind of put this in a similar format that the town of Georgia is going through for their garage. I put in 3 public forums, and you know, I wasn't really that involved on the garage public side of when the garage went through. But you guys kind of did that yourself. But because of where we are today with the virus and everything, I figured there might be a public forum number 1, and then public forum number 2, and then possibly a third one, which could be all web-based type of system. So, you know, the residents can call in, ask questions, screen share for those who don't want to come into a room or group of people. But then again, this is kind of guessing that by June, you know, meeting requirements, you know, might be loosened up more. And things are kind of in that direction right now.
I guess we have to think of the public from start to finish. Can you hear me at all when I speak up a little bit better, Aaron? Is that better? Okay. So my thought is, this is so weird. Well, let's talk about engaging the public sooner rather than later. If we think it's a very real possibility that we could be looking at November instead of March. I think the faster we bring them in and start explaining our thought processes, the better it'll be when we push what we come up with. And there are a lot of good people in town who know a lot about a lot who could actually help us when we start thinking about what we want to do with the
So I think you need to decide if you want to do November or March, and we need to decide it today or real soon.
You have
Because
to keep in mind too what's going to happen in November. You know, the discussions that are going on right now with the governor and the secretary of state. Everything might be absentee.
I think we should look at March.
Everything.
I don't know if I'm supposed to be hearing Anna, but I can't hear her at all.
Anna was, can you restate that?
There's discussion right now in the between the governor and the secretary of state, how they're going to hold the August and November elections, and it might be all absentee. They're afraid of a second wave and having voters go to the polls.
So if there's that concern about voters going to the polls, I mean, we don't know what the governor's going to say about increasing the size of gatherings of people. Like right now, we're allowed to go up to 10 people in a room. It may increase, but in the fall, it might decrease again because if there is a second wave. But that's the hard thing. I think we have to make decisions based off of limited, we don't have crystal balls. No one's using a magic 8-ball. So, I mean, do we go with the plan as is and hope that things get better, or do we try to hedge our bets knowing that March might still be problematic?
Right.
We just don't know. I mean, if we've got I am concerned, and this came up in the RFP discussion, about public engagement. So I don't know if there is an opportunity for us to think, even if it's, how we engage folks. We've got a little bit of time if it's August to think about engagement. If we're still moving with a November timeline. November being a presidential election, we'll probably have more turnout, perhaps. I don't know. So if we want more folks to weigh in on this, then aiming for November might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, I would think for the November election, there'll be a big turnout regardless if people can go in person or not, just because it's presidential. And there have been, I mean, we get all the emails from BFA, and they've been doing this YouTube live where all the families can get online and comment and hear presentations. I think there's ways that people are adapting to get information out. So we may actually get more participation if we do it virtually than actually making people come to the building.
I mean, Anna was shaking her head, and I agree. I think the turnout for the November election is going to be huge. I just don't know what it's going to look like. And like Aaron, and I don't know. I mean, we just have to make a decision and just live with it. I think we can stay on the fence a little bit longer, but we cannot do it that long, or we're going to by default eliminate November. That's all.
Let me
I think
add
we should.
another one is bidding market is really good right now. There's a little bit of turmoil out there in the market because contractors are concerned and worried. And I would hate to see you miss that. I hate to see you miss that window of opportunity, so that if we can have a project that's essentially shovel ready, so if it passes in November, you have a shovel ready project by bidding in spring of 2021, and you're going to be within that window of where the market can be really competitive. If you wait until March, then your bidding is not going to occur until 2023. So you're going to 2022, spring of 2022, for 2022 construction. And I think by then, the economy is going to be really hot. People are going to not be as competitive that time frame. The other thing I'll add is the phase that we're doing right now is a pre-development, phase, and your budget's going to break. I mean, because I told you guys that it's going to be about $65,000 to go through this phase, which is my time and what I'm thinking the architects are going to charge for their time. You stretch that out from this summer and through, the winter. There's going to be a lot more meetings. There's going to be a lot more. Costs are just going to go.
Well, what if we tell people to stay home? I mean, once we have a proposal in mind, we can market it out. Cross, or can't get for anybody in a meeting. I mean, we might need you once or twice, but
yeah,
you're good with change orders.
When this gets serious, though, you do need them at some of those public meetings. Not all the other meetings, but you definitely need them at the end. There's going to be somebody who raises their hand and has a technical question. But you're right, not all. It's not the plan.
But you're going to need some elevation, some pictures, some 3Ds or something.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need, people want to, 90% of the people visualize. So they're going to have to have some board for them, something that we can put on the website.
What is that?
I think maybe it's Brendan touching his headphones. I don't know. There was like
mic's dead.
Like someone was drinking something.
yeah, that was weird.
Nobody was moving, so I don't know.
Yeah.
These are just audio.
Somebody else on. Oh, maybe.
But the market is very competitive right now. I'll just say that.
Well, if we do it in March, that gives a whole year to stockpile cash away, which will help our case. We failed in 2015 going after the garage because we had to borrow a $100,000. It passed 3-1 when we had cash on hand.
I don't think the only reason it failed was because we had to borrow money. Money was
Really, 'cause it
cheap
was the
then.
same project. It was very simple.
It was because we tried to do it at a special election and only a few hundred people showed up and the rumors got out too. That I could feel it and I could hear it. So, I mean, we can all speculate. I think there's a multitude of reasons. We're trying to avoid all of them.
Really, all we did was change the name of the meeting space to sign.
Yep.
We had cash on hand in the past. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Waiting might cost us a little more money, but we'll have more cash on hand, which will help with the building. Especially
We're not,
after-
I mean, in addition to, cash on hand, we're not building the pool right now. So, as far as what's in the development fund, and when we talk about the capital improvement plan, there are additional funds that, aren't, we're not going to be putting them towards the pool right now. So there may be more cash on hand than we think in November, potentially. I think, my concern about November was being able to engage the public. And I think that Jessica's right, that there's a lot of organizations that are finding, thoughtful ways of engaging with people. So, I can't say that in, leading into March that we're not going to have the same problem, and we might have lower interest just because it's not a major election year. So if we really want the public to be involved and informed, I think that, and we've got a timeline that could potentially work for November, I think we should try for it and then have some place where we, can pull the handbrake if we need to, if it looks like for any reason it's not going to work out.
My mind is doable. You'll see my activities. I've linked all the activities together, so if one thing slips, you're going to see how everything else will slip. But right now, the timeline doesn't work.
Oh, there's somebody.
What is that sound?
I don't know. There's
Oh, it's the ghost that haunt the building. No, that's probably not. That's probably not.
You have 10 minutes before you go into your regular meeting.
I don't know. We can't think of ourselves in a bubble. We have to think of what's going to happen with the state. Because we are an extension of the state. We are an incorporated entity to handle things that the state itself does not want to deal with. The collection of taxes, localized land use regs, and really plowing roads that the state doesn't want to have to deal with. That's really all that exists. The public lumps us in with the state. We even send the bill for the school portion, so we get lumped into the schools. So if there's revenue shortfalls all over the place, and their property taxes go up, and with debt spending out of the general fund, and we're talking doom and gloom all through November, we're proposing $3.5–4 million project. That's going to be the first thing that gets on the chopping block, no matter what it is. You see a lot of conservative residents of town down talking the House Democrats plan to send everybody a check for $2,000 a month until the crisis is over. They don't really care about what the net effect to them is if it's going to create debt without time. We're looking at $200 million shortfalls in the ed fund alone. Yes. We have to factor in the broader.
But if it gets voted down in November because of doom and gloom, it's probably going to get voted down in March too, but we also have an option of going back to the voters in March potentially. It's a short turnaround, but.
That's true. You can revise it.
By March, you'd have a new Congress, new legislature that would have been in session for a couple of months, or a month and a half. So the conversations can shift on a dime from doom and gloom to now we have control for 2 years, so everything's great. I think we should think about it. November versus March for one more week. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if somebody wants to call for a motion, go for it.
Not now, though.
Not now.
Not right now.
I have a question about how purchasing, if we need to purchase a property in the Bay, if we go with option 3, does that impact our timeline? Because, I mean, I would think it would or not. I don't know. What would that do to this timeline for November?
November, all the work that will be done for November is not involved with the purchasing of property.
I don't think it changes it much.
No.
We're gonna need to seriously think about it, though. We're gonna have to have something on option, but
We'll do a contract. If we decide we want to purchase a specific piece of land for option 3, A, B, or C, we enter in a contract before the vote. We know if the vote passes, we have something in action. And it's contingent. The sale is contingent on voter approval. So that's our fail safe. So, I mean, if it's a cash transaction, each of the vote, and you're still lined up to do it.
By statute, the select board can purchase property
Yeah,
without going to the voters.
But not out of that fund.
I don't hear Brenda, but I did have one question for Matt just before we run out of time. I mean, if we have to do septic and a well for a property at the Bay, do you, with that in consideration, do you still think it's a way better option than trying to renovate the town hall that we have? And I just keep pressing it because so many people have come to our meetings and have made statements that they would hate to see this building no longer be the town hall. So I just want to have a really clear picture that that is not a good option for us.
It really isn't. In fact, to be honest with you, I think the existing septic system is illegal, to be honest with you. It would not, you're grandfathered in, but you're completely maxed out. And so if you were to have large meetings or hire additional staff, you would not conform to the current building codes. And the current septic design, it does not conform to that either.
But with another property at the Bay, we'd have to build a new septic anyway.
Right, but it would be, it'd be in conformance to current design, you know.
So I guess what Jessica, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica, you're asking if we can spend the same money to upgrade the system here.
There's no
Right.
reason you can't upgrade the system.
Oh, you can't?
Property.
no, it'd be part of the rehab there.
Yeah, no, you can't, the system that you
You have
have
to
here,
do
they can't, you don't have enough land, and you can't upgrade it.
So how would a developer be able to do that if they bought the building from us?
You'd have to try to maintain it, well, you could keep it grandfathered in within the same amount of people that it was designed for. So you'd have limitations for, you know, it could be like 1-bedroom apartments or 2-bedroom, you know, apartments.
12 gallons per day.
Yeah, there's per person.
Office space is different than residential, obviously, but if we're permitted for 20 staff during the day, you might get 5 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. That's 4 or 5 1-bedroom efficiency units.
Sorry, I couldn't hear Brendan. What did he say? It could be 5 apartments?
Yes, 5 or 6 gallons. It's all based on
That's
gallons
not
per day.
That's just a,
Yes.
I haven't seen the actual permit.
Or it could be a mixed use type of scenario too, where you can have lower level as a either small retail or some other type of use, and then 4 or 6 apartments above that.
A 5-day a week indoor farmers market.
There was some sort of septic system that Alan's brought up a few times that's more like a bigger shared system. I don't really know much about it, but I mean, are there alternatives out there?
There are alternatives out there. We just don't have the real estate because we're constrained for parking and for our septic. So I would really advocate against using any more of our land for sewer since we already don't have enough spots to park cars.
No, she was talking about a localized, a regional.
Oh, there are options. I just don't think we have the real estate to do it.
Well,
Oh,
no,
like a mini,
Oh, a mini
like a mini
municipal?
Yeah, they do have like a mini
Yeah.
district type of, they call it modular system. But if you did that, then you'd want to get customers, you know, to tie in, so they would help pay for that. And if you're talking multi-million-dollar capital investment.
We talked about the 10, 12. We looked into it.
Yeah.
We had a study done here too.
With a municipal septic system and a town hall, you'd be pushing
But I mean, if it was the right mixed use, that's what a private developer could do with a private-public partnership.
fun. You just go out and you do what Highgate's doing right now with their exploratory committee. They surveyed every property owner on 78, asking if we brought water and sewer to the airport, would you hook on? If you do something like that
Mhm.
today, and you put you, that's pushing you down that much. So I guess that's a thought for the
Yeah, I think we need to ask one question, not a sewer question at the same time. Yeah, that would be a hard message to get out there.
So here's a,
design.
so what if we left like the town manager here or Anna here, and then have like town offices say like on the north end, with like, because we're talking about a fire department, or there's been some rumbling.
There has. Mhm.
Whatever, another
Satellite station.
satellite station. There you go. So why don't we, incorporate like I'd say the town manager and Jen and zoning will move in a new building with the fire department. Like maybe on the north end, we'll keep Anna down here to satisfy the voters saying, let's keep town offices in the bay. I know I'd hate to have two buildings, but we got to keep this building anyway, kind of, unless we get rid of it.
I'm not opposed to splitting up administration and the budget.
I don't.
I don't think they have to live in the same building, and I think it would be advantageous to the town if they were separate if it was done. I think this should, I don't know, I'm with Jessica, I really want to explore this building and every thing before we move on.
So we have 1 week.
How much time do we have to explore it? I'm just wondering, like,
Well,
what,
see,
that's,
you have all the time we're running out of vault space. So we have what, a year to 2 years left on vault space? Maybe 3 at the outside, but it's going to take us a year or 2 to get something built and done. So we have a little bit of time, but now we're out of time this evening, so maybe you'll have to.
well, Carrie, my question was just with this timeline. If we were aiming for November, we would need to have a decision, like we can't explore much more if we
That
wanted
is
to meet
true.
this
Oh,
timeline.
yes, right, yeah, a week. Maybe. Right, it's
Try to
short.
reconvene sometime later this week. You guys
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, because it's tight. I mean, we need to get our end done in a 2.5 months, and then do public outreach for at the minimum 2.5 months, 3 months. Yeah. And Matt's right. We have to have the warning done about 40 days before the election, which is end of September.
I don't know that it's worth pushing to hit a timeline or working. I don't know.
I can't hear Brendan at all.
He said he wasn't sure it's worth pushing a timeline right now, the November timeline.
I think it's worth,
Can you stop sharing your spreadsheet there?
I think it's worth coming up with a concept that all 5 of us can get behind 100%.
I agree.
Before we worry about when we take it to the voters.
Now we know who the culprit is. Yeah.
His name isn't Kathy.
So
So,
where are we leaving it? Before we move on to your regular meeting?
question.
Well, if we're pushing out the timeline, sounds like we need a decision about if we're delaying the timeline, and then we need to decide in that same moment if we're going to explore whether we stay or not, and then we need to know what the questions are. And then if we don't have those answers tonight, then we probably need to have a special meeting ASAP would be my guess, so that we can get this. Because if we do want to continue with this timeline, if that's what we decide, we've got a very short window. So
Yep. I mean, we can go through a regular meeting. You have enough time at the end. Matt doesn't need to stay for that necessarily, but could return back to it or do it another night.
Well, we're under the veil of executive session right
No,
now. No,
never called for an executive session.
no, that's right.
No. It's being recorded, so, I mean, if you meant that, I'm sorry, we did not do that.
What's everybody doing Thursday at, call it 3:00?
I'm gonna be at a testing site for COVID-19, so I can't.
That sounds
Me
fun.
too. And I'm-
Jessica just say me too.
Yes.
Because they're going around the state and testing.
It's really,
Yeah.
God, I've
Mine's
got
been
from
in the
something
same
every
chat.
single night this week.
I think we need a day to digest. I don't think we go through a regular select board meeting. I think we're gonna fall right in the same spot.
It might, maybe next week early.
Yeah.
Monday's a holiday.
Monday's a holiday. Could we shoot for Tuesday?
Tuesday's planning commission.
But you
What
could
time?
meet before that,
6:30.
6:30.
Wednesday an option, this Wednesday?
Wednesday this week?
I mean, you
Morning
guys
time?
can meet, I mean, it's supposed to be 2 days. No. You can warn an emergency meeting.
I don't know if
That's
this
just
is an
one,
emergency.
right, I can.
Friday is flexible for me.
What's
Not
that,
for
Jessica?
Jonathan.
Oh,
Did you say Friday was good for you,
yeah.
Jessica? Yeah. The one
I
day.
can't meet before 4:30 on Friday.
Jonathan works Fridays.
Um,
Structured job.
What about Tuesday, the 26th?
Yeah.
At like 4:30 or 5 or something.
Well, we could do it 5:30 again.
Tuesday, 5:30.
You don't have to have this room, but if you want it, you can have it. You could do it Zoom.
I think we should do a Zoom. I'm not coming back here to do this S show until I said S. This was a nightmare. I'm never going through that. I'll gladly do it from my house.
I think we.
Can you guys just Zoom where you are?
Yeah.
Could you just Zoom from town hall for the rest of the meeting?
Yeah, no, I'm not going. I'm talking for next week.
Yeah, I'm just saying for tonight so we can hear you. Tuesday after 5:30 works for me. I get home at 5:30.
5:45 on Tuesday.
And so that would be a meeting where we could make decisions and go forward. I will just have to keep like a super tight schedule so I can get off by 6:30 to do planning commission.
Oh, planning.
Right. Right.
It'll make you make a decision if you have short
Yeah,
amount of
I know,
time.
but we're not gonna make the right decision in 45. There's no way.
If we explore what Jonathan talked about, splitting up the clerk's office and leaving either administration or the clerk's office in this building, there's no way that we can reach that conclusion within 2 meetings. I guess I don't mind exploring that because it's the one thing we haven't explored or the select board hasn't explored for 10 years or more.
I just wonder, I mean, I think we're in our regular meeting time now too, but, you know, I don't know how that serves the public if we put our offices in 2 different spots. So that's the other thing I wonder too. But I mean, I guess it sounds like we can't make a decision and we need to explore it a little bit more. So maybe the decision is to delay, but I just feel like that's not what we heard all through the last election cycle and with what people were saying. They were hoping we could do something. So.
Does everyone just want to say what they're feeling, what they're leaning towards?
Yeah, let's do that and end on that and plan for 5:45 Tuesday. Okay, so Jessica, great idea. Why don't you start?
I mean, I definitely like the idea of it staying at town hall, but if the price tag is stacking up as we can't do that, then I would be interested in just staying in the Bay and buying the new property.
Aaron?
I think that based on what we talked about today, I think that space limitations in the current town hall are concerning long-term for me. And I would want to consider staying in the Bay at a new location that we can build to suit our needs for the long term.
Jonathan?
I still like the idea of having two separate places. If we're gonna, if we're gonna have a satellite fire department at some point, why don't we incorporate that with some town offices too?
Well, you could put the,
And I don't know, it's just the way I feel about keeping like a big, because in 50 years, the town population is supposed to double. So what's that mean for staff for the town? Is that like, 50% more staff? How big is your mound system going to be on a piece of property down there? The soil is naturally wet. I don't know. I think we need to think about getting on municipal city water and sewer.
You have to size it today for that size of the building. So if you're gonna build a 10,000 square foot building with that holds only so many people, you have to size it for that. It's gonna be 20,000. You spend the money, do the engineering today for that to take the capacity.
Right.
you do the septic system, the full capacity of the building, and you engineer the building for the future capacity.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, property in this area can handle what our future capacity is.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised some of the junk land that people put septic systems on that work well. I'm not calling the land that we looked at junk, but I'm just saying I've seen some things. Pre-treatment septic systems are, but hey, I kind of have a very similar line of thinking as Jessica. My first thought is to stay here somehow, whether it's a quasi approach, like what Jonathan's talking about. But if the price tag and the user timeline doesn't make sense, then we look at a new building, and I think if we build something new in the Bay Area, it should accommodate everything. If we rehab this building, we should split the administration and leave half here, but have somewhere else. I don't know. It's, that said, we have a
Are you meeting on Tuesday?
5:45.
Okay.
So everybody's homework is to try to come with a solid position on what you want to do, even if it doesn't match something that we talked about tonight. Think about it, and then Tuesday night we'll try to bang it out and see where we get in 45 minutes.
And I would encourage you guys to read my report. I will also upload Scott Barton's report onto Smartsheet, and I will give you guys all access to that tomorrow. You'll see it all in there.
And the Scott and Partners report has a space needs analysis, and he also based the future needs on permit. And he factored in what the permit would mean for new builds or, calls for new housing and new staff needs.
Population growth.
I mean, obviously it's a guess, but the population growth was factored in with the permitting.
Yes.
Pretty good guess, I think. All right, then we're done with that section. Now,
It's a lot easier to do the garage when everything is really done. All we had to do was change the name of the meeting room.
Well, you may already have them, but do you want me to email you everyone's emails? So
Yes.
you can give them access to this one?
Yeah.
I can do that.
Basically, yeah. Anyone who needs access to it, just send that to me, and I'll get it. I'll send it out.
Will do.
Okay.
Thanks,
you.
Al.
Have a good night.
Drive safe.
All right.
Start our regular meeting. We're a little late at 6:43. Let's try our hand at the Pledge of Allegiance.
we're gonna let Brendan do it alone.
Oh, well, we're all on one mic, so it's
Okay.
gonna be us. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're
gonna get it.
My head's shot today.
I'll do a solo next time.
Thank you. Jen's the new leader.
Jen wants a solo.
Jen is now the chair of the select board.
Yeah.
It has been. Okay, public hearing.
All right.
Make the motion to enter the public hearing.
Actually, I'd like to interject there. Discovered today that it wasn't actually warned appropriately. We missed it by a few days, so I would like to not open a hearing and not have that public hearing. We're going to have it in June.
And that is kind of tied to the messenger, making the weekend edition.
Oh, there's a couple things, but the original date of the first hearing was in April, and it needs to have a 30-day minimum between hearings. And the first hearing was on the 20th, and this is the 18th, so we did not meet the 30 days.
So that's easy enough. Let's
So
move
you
on
don't
to
have to
this.
make any motions on that at this time.
Moving on. Crank this out. I'd like to get home with this toast.
That would be fine.
So, general fund warrant. I'm gonna read them out. If somebody wants to make an motion to approve or bring up any questions about it. Then somebody will have to second, and then I'll call for a vote. So, general fund warrant dated 5/18/2020, $66,055.95. Anybody have any questions? Okay, take a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the general fund warrant.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's 3-0. I'm gonna sign this. This one's done. Another warrant. I like the, Jonathan, you make the motion, Jessica, you second. Well, that's gonna be smooth.
You have any more warrants?
I do.
Okay.
Industrial park warrant. It's called Green Mountain Power related to the sewage pump, sign lights, and the street lights. Dated May 18th, 2020, $749.81.
I'll make a motion, we approve the industrial park warrant.
Jonathan made the motion. I don't know if you heard him.
I'll second.
Okay, Aaron second. Due to a mic mute. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, infrastructure development fund warrant. That's the, so it's the first check on the town hall consulting contract with Matt, and then an installment on the salt shed contract. They total to $8,606.50.
I'll make a motion, we approve the infrastructure development fund warrant.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night. Rusty's giving my just update. Now talking about paying people. Okay, so I'm gonna do one more. 2 payroll warrants. May 8th, 2020, $18,757.02. May 15th, 2020, $20,271.69.
I'll make a motion, we approve both the payroll warrant.
I'll second.
Thank you, Aaron. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes? Anybody have any corrections to the minutes in the packets?
Don't see any. There's shaking of nose, so motions.
Jonathan, we need one for,
Oh, I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes
May 4th?
for May 4th.
Second it.
And there's another stop,
And,
the joint meeting with the planning commission.
oh, that's right, look different. Yes.
April 27th.
And the April 27th meeting.
I was looking for just a copy.
Jonathan made a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th and May 4th. We have a second?
Is there a second on that?
A second.
Thank you.
Jessica,
It
all
was.
in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
3-0.
We're gonna get this down.
We are getting there. Yeah.
Oh, it's so hard learning new things.
Public comment. Alan, are you here to mess up my night?
No, he's muted. He's gonna stay muted. Sorry.
You don't have a road or turnaround ruts from a truck backing in your driveway to be upset about?
Oh, getting everything fixed.
Your new sidewalk looks good, buddy. I like the way you mulched it.
Do you want me to mention the thing about the plow truck right now and the bids?
Sure.
I might as well. I kind of started.
That's on your report.
It's not in my report. I meant to mention it during warrants. Alan and I talked about going out to bid for plow trucks. We asked voters to approve up to $140,000. Unfortunately, the bids are coming in 20, 25, well, 24 and change $1,000 more than we have. And I would like to propose that we pay that from the general fund. We're expecting to have basically an excess, not an excess, that's a bad word. We are going to have funds left over after we subtract most of our expenses, and I'd like to use that amount of that money.
So do we want to talk about the state payment?
Yes, so Anna got the last notice for, we do that in the fourth quarter of every year, that the ed fund will net us about $150,000. That usually goes right into our fund balance. And we talk about that when we end the year and get ready for the next election. But I think it's a conservative place to get money, considering we should have an excess to just use $25,000 of that.
So we can spend the 25,000, still have over the 100,000 that was on the ballot, the fund balance to use to reduce taxes.
Yes and no. The money you're talking about was from last year's fund balance. So when we propose that, I just don't want people to think we're doing that. It's from last year's fund balance. But yes, we should have plenty of money to do that for this year. And Anna was in agreement. I did talk to her about this before. So there's no action. Just know that Alan, we did the best we could. We absolutely do need this plow truck. Supply and demand. Supply is short right now. I don't want to belabor that too much, but they apparently know it, and I think that's why bids came in a lot higher.
Fair enough.
Do you have
Anybody
anything?
have any questions about that?
I don't have any questions. This isn't something you need a motion for.
It isn't. You'll see it on a invoice. You'll see it on a warrant in the future, and I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable with it before we process that payment. It's a big expense for us. $165,000, but we do need a plow truck.
Going Carrie's preferred route from the general fund and our fund balance helps us not have to touch reserves.
There are other options, right? We could have taken it from an emergency fund. This is an emergency. We have to have this plow truck, and it was an unforeseen shortfall, but I'd prefer to just take it from the general fund. It's returning it to the taxpayers almost immediately in a way.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Carrie about that? Move on. Carrie.
Yeah, so I'll do this short. I give a COVID update. The town offices are open by appointment only at this point through the end of this week. I provide every Friday the select board with an update on basic state things, like the Vermont Department of Health sent us something. Aaron provided that for us. That was excellent. There's another food drop-off or distribution coming up on the 28th in Swanton. We have that on our COVID page. And this time it's not MREs. It's something I think more fresh. I'm not going to get into the details there, but so staffing for our parks and rec is ramping up. We've now hired all of our summer staff. We are opening our parks and our parking lots, but as Alan and I talked about, we have not fully developed our sanitation schedules, so the restrooms are not open yet. They're normally open on Memorial Day. I think that's our goal. But we've been getting some phone calls on that. So The parks will be open. The beaches are not open until the governor says differently. And as most people know today, retail was allowed to open at 25%, and the state of emergency was extended. Hospitality should be able to open up to 25% by Friday. And I think that's more or less it for us. I mean, we're open by appointment, and we've seen all departments of the town are operational, so we're not slowing anybody down as far as real estate or lawyers. Is there anything else from our health experts that I missed? Nope. All right. That's it. That's all I got on that one. So the next item, proposed truck bids, but this one was for the one we're selling. I don't know if you want to briefly describe that, Alan. I usually have the specs on that, and I don't have it in front of me right now.
Sure. It was one of our older 550s. It's the one that the engine went in it over the winter time. So it's been set and idle. It had a lot of rust and such. So we did advertise, put it out to bid. We had 4 bidders, and
We were going to take the high bid.
we took the high bid and let it go.
So this is kind of an FYI. This is one of the things, kind of like animal control issues. If we don't talk about it, people get a little upset. They'd like to hear about it. So we're just letting people know that's what we're doing. And the high bid on that was $3,577. But hey, trucks are in short supply, as Alan said. So we're thrilled with that, actually. So the last item under not the last item, last item on the front page, capital improvement program. This is draft 2. You should have it in front of you. The significant difference in this, obviously I've talked about it a couple times, but is that the municipal pool is no longer in there, and funds are not being drawn from the local option tax or infrastructure fund to support that project. So you'll notice that there's a little more money at the end of each year in the 5-year summary.
Question. So I noticed in the breakdown on the sidewalk funding, there's $100,000 or $125,000 a year, but $75,000 of it was grants. 40,000 ended up being from the LOT, and then 10,000 came from the new impact fee that we haven't straightened out yet. So we're only investing 40,000 a year in actual hard dollars of our income, and we're relying on almost double that in grants. I would rather invest more money at the CIP, and then if we get grant, we do more. I'd like to have at least 75,000 to 100,000 a year strictly out of the LOT to support connectivity, whether it's for bicycles or sidewalks.
Well, we happen to have the chair of our planning commission on here who is a very big part of this process. So do you have anything you want to add to that? Why you got to that number?
Well, that was just based off of the, in part, just the amount of the sidewalks that we were thinking we could have build, like we could build in a year. So there's a capacity component to it, you know, and then in that, hoping that most of that would be grant funded. I think that the planning commission, since we've been, you know, hoping to see the bike and ped plan get sped along, would be happy to see a further expansion of sidewalks. I think that there would also be interest to talk about how, you know, we have been, our last meeting, we talked a lot about the ordinance or the impact fee, excuse me. So we didn't have consensus on the direction of the impact fee, but I think everyone did, there was some conversation around, you know, what more could the LOT do for us to move this along? Because again, we'd like to see it move along. So I think that if the select board is interested in increasing bike and ped, I think the planning commission would be there for it. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And just, you know, keep in mind too, let's see, I'm trying to figure out which page it's on. I have to look at my cell phone here. But, you know, when we're talking about the approximate account balance. So this could be on the table on page 17 of the CIP. You know, that's assuming that we're still getting the same amount of LOT coming in. If our
Right.
LOT is lower,
Right.
you know, you can see that the account balance year to year is still pretty high. So even if the LOT is lower, we can still do the current plan that we have with a lower LOT. So I think that, you know, part of the point that I want to make when looking at this is that we can still do what we want to do for the town using LOT or using this plan. You know, if the LOT drops a whole lot, you know, maybe then we need to think about, maybe we reprioritize a sidewalk plan or one of the sidewalks for that year. But so it's flexible, but I think the main thing is that, you know, we've got the funds.
I mean, we could book 100,000 instead of 40,000, and then if the LOT revenue didn't look good, I mean, this is only a guidance document.
That's right, it is. It's only a planning tool. But I would like to get something approved, you know, in the next month.
I would recommend to this board that we approve this one, knowing that the Planning Commission reviews this every year. So if we have an appetite for more sidewalks next year, sure, we'll re-update this to make sure that we can do more in sidewalks next year. You know, and again, or change the planning for future years so that we know what that impact would be.
That's a good idea, because the year should probably be fall for the Planning Commission, and getting it to the Select Board by January, February-ish.
I thought we were shifting the budget to October.
We are, but this is a fluid, it's a larger document. It's not updated every single budget session. The projects themselves are brought forward. We have to have this in place, so then you start doing actual costs and conceptual budgets for these projects, because you can't take something on one of these pages and actually, you know, put it on a ballot. So there's got to be lead time before budget time for this, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more towards sidewalks as well. I mean, when I look at the page 20, where it talks about sidewalks and it says $50,000 from the reserve, does anybody remember what the estimate is to do Congress Street? Because in note number 4, it says that's what we're doing in 2021. So is that enough money to actually do that?
We could pull the
I
simple
don't know.
answer to that would be.
Ned had his hand raised to answer that, I think.
Yep, Ned.
Oh, Ned's not on my screen, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I need to unmute. Yeah.
Yep.
As I remember it, and I have to say this is a vague recollection, Congress Street was in the 125,000 range, so we're close. I think we may run over because there's might be some right-of-way, wetlands, things like that, but it's in that order of magnitude.
And Jessica, that includes 50,000 in grants. So it's 50,000 in grants and 50,000 in our LOT to get us to 100. So
yeah, I just want to make sure we can get enough to actually do that. I just don't want another year to go by without moving to the projects.
The city's been in the sidewalk business for a few years now, and they had that extension included in the budget for the pool. So maybe it's worth shooting Dominic an email and seeing what that number was and how they came up with it. And we check that against that 126, because that seems exorbitant for that.
but if it's exorbitant, Brendan, that wouldn't, I mean, for a planning document, if we're high, then, you know, it's also not, you know, I don't know if hearing that information, that might be good for us, but I don't know if that impacts this planning document for this year. And if we find out that it costs less to do Congress than we thought, then maybe next year's CIP we update based off of what we've learned from doing Congress Street.
They have that information.
We can get that information, but I think the point is, it would be great to get this thing approved tonight, and then you can change it every 6 months if you really want to. But we need to have a 5-year plan in place. that shows support for those projects, and then we can get more information on each of the projects and get them into the proper budget cycle. That's the plan anyway.
Jonathan, been awfully quiet.
Well, I'm trying to understand this.
Mhm.
Where does like Alan's like equipment plan fall into this? Like I see like in Park and Rec.
It doesn't. You took the equipment out.
You took it out. You
That's
placed it in-
all equipment for the fire and public works departments will be funded through the general fund in the reserve. And we're gonna keep that practice
Why is that?
because we received pushback when we included equipment because it's infrastructure. And there was a challenge from the public on that side of the room in particular, if you remember the night I'm talking about. And then from that moment on, our thinking kind of shifted.
Well, there's two aspects of this, main aspects. One of them was that there is some equipment listed, and it's kind of on pages like 11, and that is funded through the general fund, but just listed here as a guidance tool for department heads. The other part was what Brendan was referencing, is funding it through our infrastructure development fund. And that's the part that, you know, Aaron's referencing as well, that we think we can do this plan, and the numbers prove it out pretty comfortably. So there's kind of two different things going on here. One of them is that plan for DPW and fire, but that's funded through the general fund, and the other one is funding these other things through the infrastructure development fund. It gives us some guidance, and I think people will love the fact that we have a predictable revenue source to do some of these infrastructure things that they've been clamoring for.
Does anybody have any more questions or discussion points, or should we entertain a motion to get this approved?
Did you hear Brendan's question? Okay. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the capital improvement program.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Rio, thank you. So,
Jessica said aye, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
I didn't hear. No.
the honor wall criteria look fine to me.
I mean, again, if I miss something or you find something, we can change it again, but just have it in place, I think, is helpful.
But we can modify.
You absolutely can. You can modify it once a month. I hope you don't, but you can. You
Yeah,
can.
so say we go through this
Mm-hmm.
for the first time and it's
Correct.
impossible to get 2 members from the public. You can amend the policy and scratch it. There's changes.
Mhm.
that we can- I think we'll have to experience a couple nomination processes before we really.
You want to make a motion? No
I'll
pressure.
make a motion to approve the honor wall criteria.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3-0.
You know, this says roll on it. I don't think it's,
I know
That's wrong.
That was Al's original piece.
okay, so we're just going to call it
It is
the
just
criteria
honor wall.
for honor wall recognition. Okay,
That's what's
just
up
to
on
be
the
clear.
agenda. No, really.
All right.
Well, is it criteria really? Because the nominating process,
Recognition.
well, it's the process by which it happens.
Well, now it'll be a policy, wouldn't it be a policy or
Well,
procedure?
that's it. It'll be the committee.
How about honor wall policy?
There we go.
We usually
That's
call,
comprehensive.
we call most of these things that.
Do I need to update my motion to say that I approve it with edits?
With the friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Yes, you just did. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You want to revote that?
I don't think you need to.
I'm just changing
The
it.
intent
You
was,
changed me.
the intent was clear. I'm comfortable with that.
The fact that nobody wants to revote clears this up. So we were copied on a PUC application for a solar project, 45-day notice.
Correct. No motion needed. If you have any comments, let me know, but I didn't hear of any.
Perfect. Schedule, Monday, June 1st, Monday, June 15th, and Tuesday at 5:45 for a 45-minute check-in. Hopefully we could reach something out of it.
Do we want to talk about whether we need to all be on Zoom or all be in the room?
We do.
We do.
June 1st is your next meeting. I guess.
I don't want to have everyone in the room and bar the public from being here. And we can't have everyone in this room and allow the public in. So it's either we do it as a group in a larger space, like a tennis court at the complex, where we can allow for social distancing, and if 20 people decided they were bored and wanted to show up, we could accommodate it. Or we all stay on Zoom.
But I
If
thought
20
you were.
people show up, we can't have it because it has to be 10 people or less. So I'll just say the Planning Commission had this conversation last week and we decided to stick with Zoom just because it's easier.
I'd like to see what happens Wednesday.
I know he said he was going to loosen something up this week, Wednesday or Friday, but I mean, honestly, I still think the board could meet in this room. It's just like having all the employees here, but asking the public to come in only by appointment. It's not perfect, but all or nothing, I agree.
Would we still do Zoom, still have it through Zoom? So would we have to think about, or do we ask, I don't know if Northwest Access is doing anything. I'm just thinking about, if we have one camera to capture all of us, the mic still might be a problem. We might not know about it because the public might be calling in and maybe they can't hear us super well. So I think we would need to make sure that we've got the AV equipment needed to capture us if we're all social distanced far around each other.
Right.
You have to capture us all, big wide
It's
angle.
true, and I can't do that with Zoom. This was hard enough
Why don't we stick with Zoom
for June
until-
1st.
Yes, and then
Zoom in June.
Zoom in June.
and then we could reevaluate for the 15th. If it's loosened up to like 25 and we want to explore a bigger venue, we can do that.
All right, so June 1st, it'll be Zoom only.
Staff
Except-
can meet at town hall.
Correct, yep. And June 15th to TBD.
In the interest of time, I don't really have much.
Okay. I don't have anything else either.
Well, actually,
Oh, good. Almost
we
got
want
off.
to congratulate Chief Taylor on his planned retirement.
Yes,
That happened.
that did happen recently, yep.
So I called the
I agree.
chief and congratulated him the day it went public on behalf of the entire town, I think, is the verbiage.
It might have been.
But I asked him that if he was aware of any committee or working group on giving him a send-off, that the town be included. He's been a good chief to us for almost 10 years.
Yes.
So we're thinking in theory. The only one thing, and I'm glad Alan's here. Can we issue an RFP to do the electrical work on the stone house, with the priority being picking a local contractor? I'd like to start spending down that fund, to start getting that money out into the community, especially because a two-person crew will be the only people working on the building. It's a safe project.
I mean, we can look at the scope of work. We hadn't defined the scope of work. The cool thing is the coppers on the cupola. I saw it. It looks great. On the stone house, looks really great. So they're finishing up on that right now. I don't know, when are they supposed to be done, Alan?
Waiting on a back order on the kicker plates for the doors. All the solid wood doors have been redone. The locksmith have came and put all the locks on, so they're all key to light. So we don't have locks and halves and everything falling apart like it was. So it's coming along. It should be hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks done.
So we can look.
Do you think you have enough information to develop a good scope on the electrical work that's needed in the building?
Well, Carrie and I worked on a grant last year for the interior electrical. I did have a local contractor that spent a whole weekend getting us the information we needed for the grant.
Yeah, we can look at that. It's a good idea.
I think the interior stuff is an easy thing because that's just the interior where we redone the windows and doors. I think that would be a good starting point.
You need a new service to the building?
Eventually, I think it should be upgraded. That's something I can look into.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just some 3-inch pipes and digging a trench with our excavator.
Yeah. I
we
mean,
should do it now.
I wouldn't want to get ahead if we ever got the money to redo the building the way we had looked at it, because you don't want to tear out stuff but like the lights in the center section are all going to be staying there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and upgrading the system from the pole to the building, that's something that we could look at too.
Please do. It's a safe project, the money's there. That'll make a big difference for the indoor farmers market when there's inclement weather.
You got it.
Thank you.
Don't have to tell Alan to spend money twice.
Does anybody have any other business?
No.
Seeing 3 nodding heads, ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn this select board meeting.
That's the fastest motion that's ever been made on Zoom.
I need a second.
Second.
Oh, Erin seconded that. She's on it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Symbolic aye. This Zoom meeting was.